Hello and a very warm welcome to Spotlight.
Good evening. Also tonight we begin a special series about the band of Her Majesty's Royal Marines. Sally Mountjoy has been behind the scenes to bring you the band as never seen before. We start with the history surrounding the centuries-old institution.
Well, in sport tonight, there's a double boost for Plymouth Argyle. The Chiefs go from strength to strength, and treacherous conditions put Team R Stage's competitors into a spin.
The Agriculture Minister Nick Brown has told South West farmers he's personally boycotting French produce because France is refusing to lift the beef ban. Local farmers say sympathy is not enough and what's really needed are sanctions. They're now threatening to blockade Plymouth Ferryport unless every supermarket in the country clears its shelves of French food and drink by Friday night. Julia Peat reports.
The placards were out to greet the Agriculture Minister as he arrived in Devon. While the protests weren't as vocal as Nick Brown has grown used to in recent weeks, feeling about the state of the industry was just as strong. There's deep-seated anger all round at the French refusal to lift the beef ban or to allow British lorries to transport beef through France.
My message to the French is lift the beef ban, too sweet.
Nick Brown made clear he understands the frustrations of farmers and said the government's taking legal advice on how to challenge the decision. Farmers here are calling for a boycott of French produce, French food and wine. What's your reaction to that?
Well, it's a free country, everyone can do what they like, but I'm not buying French stuff at the minute.
The minister may be avoiding French fare, but for the farmers that alone is not enough.
It's no good just complaining about the French. If the boot was on the other foot, then the French would be blockading our produce, the French government would be taking action, all hell would be breaking loose, and we need to give them a taste of their own medicine.
It's 2 years since farmers last picketed Mill Bay docks in Plymouth over the same issue, the lifting of the beef ban. Now they're threatening another blockade.
And we're asking politely that the supermarkets remove French product by this coming Friday off their shelves. We're asking the British public to support us yet again where they have, and do not buy the French apples, French wines, the cheeses. Support us, but next Friday, if this government and Europe haven't taken legal action to compensate the British farmers, as the rest of Europe would do normally, we will be at the ports taking the French ferries on.
With threats ringing in his ears, Nick Brown travelled to North Devon to see an example of the sort of diversification the government's trying to encourage. Many farmers, though, are looking for a more immediate answer.
Well, earlier I spoke to the Agriculture Minister Nick Brown and asked if he joined farmers in calling for a general boycott of French produce.
No, I'm not urging anyone to boycott French produce. It's a free society, people can choose what they do with their own spending money, but I'm not going to buy anything French until they agree to honour the agreement they made with us and our other friends and partners in the European Union, which was to allow British beef to be exported through the date-based export scheme. That issue has been decided. We've collectively made the decision, and it's up to us all to implement it. When we didn't like the ban, we obeyed the law, and the French must do the same.
Well, the farmers are saying a personal boycott isn't going to solve anything. It's no good talking tough. They want you to act tough. What are you actually going to do?
Well, I'm actually not offering a boycott as a solution. The way forward, of course, is for the Commission to assert the collective decision of the European Union, and Commissioner Byrne issued a very tough statement to that effect last Friday. I am exploring with our own legal advisors what more the UK government can do, but clearly it's for the Commission to take the lead.
What if the French don't respond to this tough statement you've mentioned? The farmers are saying if by Friday nothing's turned around, they're going to have a blockade. What do you say to that?
Look, I understand the anger of people in this country when the French government adopts what is effectively a protectionist stance. It's no good dressing up the French decision as if it was some public health measure, because it isn't. They won't even allow our vehicles to travel through France to markets where the sale of our beef is already lawful, and that cannot be justified on any sort of public health argument at all.
But can we be clear? The farmers are saying if you don't act, they're going to have a blockade. Do you condemn or condone that?
I'm not condemning or condoning my fellow countrymen. I'm calling upon the French to implement the agreement that was made collectively in the European Union. British beef, through the date-based export scheme, is amongst the safest in the world. We're entitled to sell it worldwide.
Nick Brown, thank you very much.
Well, the Conservative Party conference has opened in Blackpool today. Tory MPs have already spoken out about where they think the government is falling down on the farming issue. Our political editor, Chris Rogers, is at the conference and joins us now live. Chris, how are the Conservatives saying they would deal with the issue?
Well, the first thing to say, Russell, is that when I put to some senior Conservatives the fact that Nick Brown might be personally boycotting French goods, they almost fell off their chairs with laughter. They can't quite see that a personal pledge by Nick Brown would actually have the French farmers quaking in their Wellington boots, or perhaps they wear Napoleon boots over there. And they say he'd be far better off going to France trying to get compensation for British farmers, and particularly lifting the ban on beef on the bone, because that sent totally the wrong message to the French, that we still had this ban on beef on the bone, and only encouraged them to delay the introduction of British beef back into France.
So room for the Conservatives to capitalise on the issue then?
Yes, absolutely, and they've started doing that. They've launched this new booklet, The Common Sense Revolution, and they do have some particular proposals on agriculture. They say they will ban the import of food from overseas that doesn't meet the same high animal welfare and hygiene standards required of British farmers. That's a particular pledge of theirs. They want tough new labelling laws, and also they want to slash red tape and regulation, particularly in regard to slaughterhouses, because they see that's particularly where the domestic business has been particularly hit. And Tim Yeo, the shadow agriculture spokesman, said he would come forward soon with a specific list of regulations that they would ban if they came back into government, and that would major particularly on the small slaughterhouses.
Chris Rogers in Blackpool, thank you.
Still ahead in tonight's programme. The Pirates maintain their super start to the season. And from top to bottom, the Somerset woman who's got the South Pole in her sights.
First, a couple of today's other stories. A man from Bovey Tracy today denied 40 charges of indecent assault. Derek Hooper has still to plead to a further 17 charges of more serious sexual assaults. The charges follow allegations from ex-pupils at a former approved school in Newton Abbot. A series of roadside checks began in the southwest today as part of a crackdown on badly worn tyres. On day one of the week-long scheme, more than 11% of motorists stopped in the Exeter area were found to have defective tyres.
Two men have appeared in court in Jersey charged with possession of explosives. Andrew Bell and Ian Channing were arrested after police discovered petrol bombs, guns and ammunition at a motorcycle club in the island. They've been remanded in custody. From Jersey, James Ingham reports.
Two men, 32-year-old Andrew Richard Bell and Ian Stuart Channing, who's 31, both from Jersey, arrived at the island's magistrates' court this morning, charged with unlawful possession of explosives. On Friday, armed officers searched these buildings in Union Court in St Helier, the unlicensed premises of the Island Motorcycle Club. Although initially looking for drugs, specialist search teams found an arsenal of weapons, including sawn-off and pump-action shotguns, a crossbow and ammunition. Homemade petrol bombs were also seized from the premises. The cache is currently being examined by forensic experts at Jersey's police headquarters.
Well, we do come across firearms, unfortunately, during the course of our daily work. But yes, this sort of quantity is unusual.
The police are trying to establish why the dangerous weapons were being held and how they came into the island, as well as to ensure there are no more being hidden.
Both men appeared very briefly in Jersey's magistrates' court this morning. They spoke only to confirm their names and addresses. The case was adjourned for a month and the men remanded in custody, while police continue their inquiries.
More than 20 Portuguese man-of-war have been washed up on the North Cornwall coast. The sting from the sea creatures can be deadly. Spotlight's David George reports from Porthcawthon Bay near